So we met with Jim Martin, and Jim Martin he had made that statement that you're talking about there shortly before that particular meeting, where he said, oh, there are vocations out there if we could get them. And I and others said to him, Jim, you're completely and utterly wrong. You're absolutely for the birds. There are no vocations out there. If there were, they would be coming through.
Yeah.
And there's no sign of them. And the bishops themselves know they don't expect to get vocations. Like, we had 2 ordinations this year. Now, we have a bishop, John Fleming, who came in 2002. And in 2013, he had 2 vocations. We have nobody else, who's in the seminary. So it's going to be another 7 years. So he's, in 20 years, we'll have two vocations. One of them is in their 50s. So in 20 years' time, he'll be in his 70s, So we said to Jim Martin, look, it isn't going to work there or not there. But Jim Martin, like a lot of the bishops, don't want to name the truth. And they're saying, oh, if we did this, and if we had these kind of, vocations workshops, and if we presented it as a challenge, and so on and so forth. The reality is that young people today don't want to live the kind of lives that priests and nuns are living. That's the reality. Now, in terms of the question you asked me about the African priests, that would be an absolute and utter disaster. And it would be an utter disaster for this reason, that they won't understand, A, the language. They may learn to speak English and so on, or have a workable knowledge of English, but they certainly won't know the culture. And at the moment, Irish Catholics are looking at priests and holding their hands on their head and saying, this guy is unreal. This guy doesn't know what makes us tick. This guy doesn't know what's happening in parish, in homes and in families. Now, if they're an African guy, what chance have they of having confidence in him? And the reality of the African situation so far has been that the numbers who have come in, even though they're very small numbers, people don't understand them because of their accents or whatever, and they're not a success in that sense. So, the deacons that are going to be ordained. They'll have to ordain the deacons as a first start, in other words, and get people used to the fact that there are priests who are married and who are working in parishes just as you'd have Protestant ministers or whatever. That's the future. And everybody knows it's the future, even though people don't want to say it. But I think the African thing won't work. And this notion that you can transport somebody. Irish priests went on the missions, they went on the missions to Africa, but it was a completely different sort of culture, and they were giving to Africa rather than sort of taking from Africa. Yeah. So it was the dynamic was completely different. And missionary orders and congregations would feel that it just won't work, and they would be the people who would know,
Yeah, as you said, like you're saying, there's been the community here for like 15 centuries. Like an African priest just wouldn't understand.
No, he wouldn't.
That's the heart. We actually talk about the Association of Catholic Priests now, which you're a member of. Do you think it's kind of healthy to have a movement that is kind of be a liberal movement? And do you find that have you ever been kind of the main church kind of trying to shun you a little bit?
Yes. Yeah. Well, we would have. I mean, we're established now over 3 years, and we came together basically because we could see what was happening, and basically because we felt the whole thing was kind of falling apart. And I was reluctant to get involved in it because I had been involved in associations for all of my life, and I just didn't want to start again. But anyway, eventually I got sort of pulled into it. But basically what we were saying was that there was a Second Vatican Council, 1962 to 65. Yeah. And after the Second Vatican Council, the 2 popes that followed, Pope Paul VI was there at the time at the end of it, and then he was there for a few years afterwards. But John Paul II, and leaving out John Paul II, and Benedict, were very much, even though they weren't saying, we're against the council, they did everything to block it. And there was a huge opportunity there for the church to engage with the world, and with the world where people, the real world that people lived in. And the documents of the Second Vatican Council weren't set in stone, but they were pointing a direction, and they were saying, don't be condemning the church, the world, the flesh, and the devil, which was the great sort of unblessed triumvirate in the past, but everybody blamed the world, the flesh, or the devil for something. Forget about that, and look at the world and see what the world has to offer, and engage with the world at its own level, and bring whatever you can bring to this debate and to this discussion. Basically what Francis is saying now.
Yeah.
So the Second Vatican Council was left for 50 years, and now suddenly it's on track again. But 4 years ago, when we set up the Association of Catholic Priests, we set it up on the basis that we wanted to push forward the reforms of the Second Vatican Council on the grounds that this was the only hope left for the Church.
Why do you think it was left for 50 years?
Because Paul VI panicked, and because John Paul II was a Pole and wanted us all to become Polish Catholics, and because Benedict XVI, all very good men that I respect and so on, but he was the wrong man in the wrong place. He continued John Paul's reservations and so on about theology and so on and so forth, and he was too old and he was too much a theologian. And now we have an opportunity, and I wouldn't over egg it in any sense. We have an opportunity now with Francis, because Francis knows what's happening.
Yeah.
He knows what's happening, number one. And number two, he's not a theologian. He's a pastoral, he's a man. He engaged with people at a good level in the poverty of Buenos Aires or whatever. He knows what's happening. He knows what people are thinking and feeling. And he's saying we need to implement the direction and the attitude of the Second Vatican Council, to engage with this world and to work our way through it. Well, that's hope. But I'm 66 years of age, he's 76 years of age. There's nobody coming up after us.
Yeah.
So, we don't know what's going to happen, really. If he had come after the Second Vatican Council, when we had plenty of priests. I mean, I've been working for years at parish councils, and they've been resisted by the priests, by the bishops, and by the people. And now, if we had parish councils, if we had that scaffolding or that structure in our parishes all over Ireland, we wouldn't need priests as much.
Yeah.
We would have the leadership, the lay leadership, over the last 50 years, trained and involved and empowered and all the rest of it. And we've lost 50 years, crucial 50 years, and whether we can recover from it, certainly won't. It'll never go back to the way it was, but we might keep a presence in Ireland,
Do you think Pope Francis might be the man to tackle the celibacy issue head on?
I don't know, he hasn't said much about it. But I mean, it's so clear and so obvious. I'd say they will sort of, you do a bit of a shuffle about it first with the ordination of the deacons, I'd say. But it will have to happen fairly quickly, because there's a very small window. 20 years' time, 25 years' time, it'll be gone. I had a friend of mine who was over in Vancouver. His daughter was in Vancouver, and himself and the wife went over to visit them, and grandchildren, that sort of thing. There are schools there. He said the church in Vancouver, the Catholic church in there, was alive and vibrant. And you had to see, peopled with parish councils and finance councils and all the rest of it by people who are professional people, architects and accountants and so on, involved in the day-to-day running of the church.
Yeah.
The problem is they have two priests. They're both in their 80s, and they're going around sort of just about alive, and they're pulling the whole thing down. And in a sense, that's a kind of a microcosm of where we're at, or where we'll be at in Ireland in 10, 15 years' time. That you could have this vibrant parish, you could have people very involved, people want Catholic schooling. It's quite clear that they want Catholic schooling. They want involvement in parishes, where you have good defined liturgies dedicated, for example, to teenagers or dedicated to national school children. People are flowing into them. In Ballina, for example, every 10 o'clock Mass, every Sunday morning is a Parish Church in Ballina. There are 1,000 people there at it, mainly young children and their parents and grandparents. Because a group in Ballina, not the clergy, but a group of parents, put up 2 huge screens in the church, insist that the homily would be in language that the children would understand. The children do all the readings, they do the prayers of the faith, they're completely involved. And there's energy in the whole thing. Now the priest comes and says the Mass, but that's all you need, kind of, but you have these little patches of things happening, of possibilities. But generally speaking, overall, unless things happen fairly quickly, the window is very tight.
Do you think young people, 18-year-olds, people in their 20s, they're kind of lacking the spirituality that was there 30, 40 years ago?
Yeah, I think, and I wouldn't be too worried about it, because, I don't think it was that different with 20-year-olds. I think they lived in a very oppressive, domineering kind of church, and they said very little. They went to Mass. The parents said, you go to Mass, because if you don't go to Mass, a mortal sin, if you die, but a mortal sin, you go to hell. It was a very simple sort of thing that people got into into their brains. So people went to Mass. But I don't think there's that much difference between the 20-year-olds now and the 20-year-olds then, except the 20-year-olds now have opportunities to be different and to live different lives. Yeah. Like, I mean, here now, for instance, you couldn't have a more traditional Catholic parish. Now, it's taken completely and totally for granted that people would live with each other before they get married. 40 years ago, that was regarded as a scandal. But people have changed. And they have changed because the church isn't able to oppress them the way it was, or isn't able to dictate to them the way it was. And they have, through education and through travel and through all the rest of it, they've come to the conclusion, you know, these guys don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what it is to live as a wife or a husband in a marriage. They don't know what it is to be 20 years of age. And we'll make our own decisions, thank you very much. Yeah. And I think if the 20-year-olds of my generation had the freedom that the 20-year-olds have now, they'd be making the same decisions. I wouldn't worry too much about that, because that is part and parcel of people growing up and people making decisions and people finding themselves. I see that happening in Irish society, and then I see people getting married and settling down and having children and wanting the child to go to the Catholic school and wanting their first confession and their first communion and their confirmation and becoming carbon copies to a large degree of their parents. Now they would be very independent, they would have a great respect for democracy, they would have a great respect for, you know, people having a say and so on and so forth. They will be different and they're different kind of people. But fundamentally they want the same things.
So if priests were led marriage, you think that families could relate much more? And the priest
I don't think so. I think it depends on the personality. You know, I think if a priest is engaged with his people, he can relate to them, okay. But in terms of celibacy, I think what celibacy would do it would make the priesthood a more valuable and a more natural option for people. And it would be something that would be seen as, you know, ordinary and natural and good and wholesome. And it would be something that people would be attracted to, and I think people would come into it. You know, I mean, the number of people that I have known in my life who, for example, you know, wanted to be priests. I know them, friends of mine who are married now and have children and families and so on, would have loved to be priests and would still want to be priests. And if they got an opportunity to be priests, they would come back. Guys who left the seminary because they couldn't take celibacy, guys who left the priesthood because they couldn't live celibacy, they discovered. And a lot of them would come back. A lot of them wouldn't, but a lot of them would. So, you know, it's that kind of thing, the opportunities are there for that kind of thing to happen, you know. You know, there are stories of priests now coming back after, you know, they left and their wives died. Yeah. Now they're in their 60s or 70s and they're coming back helping out. So there are all sorts of options there if people are prepared to see them, you know. But this notion that, you know, if a man is married, therefore he understands things and he'd be able to relate things, I think I wouldn't be too impressed with that, you know. I don't think that is much, you know.
But the option of marriage is there. It's more enticing.
It is more enticing. And there are guys, like, I know them and I meet them all the time, and there are fellas who are associate members of the Association of Catholic Priests, fellas who left the seminary, and guys who are ordained, and they're still priests obviously, but would love to come back, you know. And there are hundreds of them in Westport Parish, for example.
And so what would be the age group of these lads?
Well, they'd be older, they'd be my age group, or they'd be 50s and so on and so forth, or younger than that, maybe some of them in
and
their
they
40s.
went through the training and they left.
That's right.
Yeah.
So they could be ordained in the morning. The ones who had left, or the ones who were ordained could just come back because they have the formation, they have the training, they want to do it, and so on and so forth. But in Westport Parish, there are 7 Catholic priests living in the parish who are married. And there are 2 priests. It has gone down from 4 to 2 in the parish, and they're cutting back on masses. So you have 7 guys living in the parish, going to mass in the parish, who could go up there and say mass.
They're not together.
And the whole thing is bizarre. Like it's bonkers.
What is the logic for not letting it go ahead?
Because they're afraid that if they in some way or another take the celibacy out of priesthood, that they will damage priesthood. That they will feel it is not the authentic Catholic priesthood because the tradition goes back so far. Now, in reality, the tradition doesn't go back as far as we believe or imagine, but that a lot of the times, basically what we would be saying is, you know, there has been a tradition of celibacy in the church from the earliest centuries. It wasn't compulsory or connected to priesthood until the 12th century, but it's a long tradition. You're disturbing a whole range of things. the idea too that, you know, if you hadn't celibacy, you know, this is a nice house, who wouldn't want to live in a nice house like this and be married and have the family and so on, that it would attract people for the wrong reasons. So there's a whole kind of, and there's also the whole sort of anti-woman thing, let's face it, it's all part of this mix, that the church was controlling women, it couldn't deal with women, and it kept excluded women. And that's the big argument against women priests, because they would change the whole dynamic of priesthood. Priesthood will become something different. Like in the Protestant church, for example, now you see the women priests with their Roman collars on them, which I think is terrible, because the Roman collar kind of represents that kind of closed, uniform kind of world that the priesthood was, whereas women priests, you'd imagine, would open it out. And this is what they're afraid of. They're afraid to trust women. I mean, how many women are there? Okay, they don't ordain women, but how many women are there in the Vatican? You know, now, you don't have to be ordained at all to be in the Vatican. You don't have to be, as long as you're baptized. That's all you need to do. You could be put in charge of, you know, any of the great congregations in the Vatican. But they've